If you owe $10,000.
TAM KBDT proudly presents Life Solutions, coaching, counseling, naturopathic medicine, insights for successful living, and getting better with Ann Beal.
Welcome. We are so glad you are joining us today. Dr. Slaughter is here joining me. When I say we, I'm Ann Beal. We actually have been concerned about a lot of the politicians talking about socialism and communism and things like that. And we just want to let you know that our show is called Getting Better because we want you to get better in every way. We want our country to get better, people's health to get better, people's wealth to get better, people's families to get better, emotionally, physically, financially, everything that you can think of. And all the research shows people are mentally and physically and financially healthier in capitalist societies rather than socialist or communist societies. Basically, when people are free to make their own decisions, follow their own dreams, follow their hearts, socialize with their friends and family at will, it is only natural that their everyday life is better than that experienced by people under the thumb of a dominating, all-controlling state. Capitalism is about people doing things voluntarily. Socialism is about forcing people to do things against their will. Instead of millions deciding for themselves what they can and can't do, a few elite decide for everyone. And if you doubt that, remember the many people who have risked their lives and even died trying to escape all the communist countries like Cuba and Venezuela. And even though we call them communist, what Dr. Slaughter and I are here today is to let you know they never really achieved communism. What they actually achieved was full socialism. And communism, if you think of it, the idea of communism, you think of a commune, everyone getting together and living there and having gardens and taking care of each other and all that kind of thing. But what we know about most communes is they end up being cults.
Well, and the reason they do that is because the nature of man is to seek out his own way and his own good at the expense of other people around him. And so the corruption creeps into that approach every single time. In every experiment with socialism that's been done in history, it has ended in disaster and the death of hundreds of millions of people.
Yes, and though capitalist society is not some sort of utopia, which we never have ever said it was, people everywhere have problems. But even if you can't be guaranteed a perfect life anywhere, ask yourself, who should make the decisions in your life, you or the government? And when we look at capitalism versus socialism, we can sum up each economic system in one line. Capitalism is based on human greed. And humans, we are in the mental health field, and we have mental health clinics and wellness clinics. And one thing we know is the humans left in a socialism society become corrupt. It isn't that the ideals of communism, the whole ideal of everyone working together and everything coming into one place,
sharing the wealth,
yes,
sharing
and all
the
that
happiness and joy.
Yes, the ideal of it never is achieved because of humanity's corruption.
Yeah, not on this earth.
No,
right.
And so anytime it's tried, human greed gets in the way.
Right, and the opponents of a capitalistic ideology, they attack it by saying it's about greed.
Yes.
When the truth is, it's just the opposite. Socialism is about greed. Right. And capitalism is about helping people in need.
Yes, they say that capitalism is about greed, and
right.
It's actually backwards. Right. Socialism is actually about greed, not the other way around. So how do we prove that? Well, if you look at Amazon today, anyone can take and and sell things on Amazon. We could take our supplements and the things that we have in our clinic, and we could put them on Amazon and have a business on Amazon. Mm-hmm. And so Amazon, it's thousands of products that they offer. It represents the work of people around the world who believe they have something you want
right.
as a customer or need. If they're right, like if we're right, if we put our supplements on there and we believe they will sell, either they will or they won't. It will be right and we will prosper, or we won't because people don't want it,
right.
And we won't. That's how the free market works. It encourages people to improve their lives by satisfying the needs of others. No one starts a business making a thing or a product or something people don't want. They start a business to make things to provide services for others.
Yeah, things people need and want. And those people have a voice when it comes to letting the owners of corporations and companies know what they want and what they need. That's a part of the capitalist system.
Yes, they have
Free
the ultimate
enterprise.
power because they get to put their reviews on there. They get to give it 5 stars or 4 stars, and they get to make comments about it. Just think if we could do that about a socialist society. If you go and put comments about societies or politicians and they have stars. What if our politicians have 5-star, 4-star, 3-star?
Well, there'd be a knock on your door if you disapproved of what they said or
Yeah.
did, and somebody would be taking you away.
Well, but in a capitalist society, you get to vote with your dollars, right?
That's
Either
right.
you buy it or you don't. In a socialist economy, the government has the ultimate power. It decides what you get from a limited supply. It decides should exist.
That's right. They decide what you can have out of the limited supply that they decide on.
Yes, and instead of millions of people making millions of decisions about what they want, a few people, government elites, decide what people should have and how much they should pay for it. Not surprisingly, they always get it wrong. Always.
Yes.
Have you
every
ever
time.
noticed that late stage socialist failures always run out of essential items like toilet paper?
Which is interesting in light of American economy today. But that's really true. In fact, the biggest outcry in Venezuela right now, Ann, is the lack of toilet paper. And so Maduro has said, we have ordered 50 billion rolls of toilet paper, and which is not really going to solve the basic problem, and that is that everything is shutting down and everything is falling apart over there simply because of their approach, which is a socialist approach. And what happens in Venezuela is awful. In fact, some people say, hey, if you want socialism and you follow the socialist model, eventually you're going to be Venezuela.
Well, what's interesting in Venezuela or any socialist country, okay, is that the toilet paper problem, if you have the right connections, you have toilet paper.
See, that's right. You do. You can't.
In fact, by the time they told us here that we were having a toilet paper problem, like there's a shortage of toilet paper, when that got on the news, right, I don't think any of us knew there was a shortage until they told us there was a shortage. By that time, there was a shortage. So you know why? Because all the people who knew ahead of time got the toilet paper.
Sure.
Right. And so that's exactly what happens to socialist societies.
Right, because that's an elitist mentality.
Yes.
It's an elitist approach to government and society, and that's what socialism brings in there. Some haves, but most everybody has not.
Yeah, because if you think about it, I'm sure Oprah had toilet paper and the president, all his people, and all the elite people had toilet paper. We were all running trying to go. By the time we found out we get to Sam's, there's no toilet paper. Of course, this isn't a problem if you have the right connections. Again, in a socialist society, if you have the right connections, you don't have any trouble. But if you don't, you're out of luck. And Venezuela, one of the richest countries in South America, is the most recent example of socialism. And driving a prosperous country into an economic dish. Remember when Sean Penn and Oliver Stone talked about Venezuela and how wonderful,
it was and what a perfect
when
example
was
of
that?
socialism.
Was that like in the 90s?
I don't remember the dates, but
Early 2000s?
You know, I'm sure they would have reasons why they were so desperately wrong about that. But everyone who can look at Venezuela now can see that that was a disaster.
Yes, but now all of the socialists, you know, like Bernie Sanders and all them are saying, no, Venezuela is not what we're talking about. We don't want socialism like Venezuela. So they don't want to use that as an example. I don't know why, because it's a perfect example. Right up to when it wasn't. Like it was a perfect example until it wasn't.
Right?
Yeah,
I know. And so, but the thing about it is that people need to understand is that is always historically, from the times of Lenin on up to the present with Maduro in Venezuela, that is where socialism leads.
Yeah,
Whether
so
you like to
now-
admit it or not, that's where it goes.
Now they're flat out lying, saying that Denmark and Sweden are socialist countries. They're not socialist countries.
No, even people who live there understand they are not socialists. They are capitalists. They are free trade people, and that's even their prime minister has addressed that issue over the last 5 years, and he has said, we are not socialists.
No.
We are a free trade nation.
They are. They're free market. They're capitalists, but they do have free health care, and they do have free college, and they have some stronger unions to protect workers.
Right, and they're able to do that because they've raised everybody's taxes sky high. And so people haven't quite put it together sometimes. I'm getting free stuff, but it's really not free.
Right.
Because I pay for it through taxation.
And you have to have money to pay taxes. I mean, like, if you are not making money, then you don't owe any taxes. And so if you don't have capitalists there making money, then you're not going to be able to pay taxes, right? You're not going to get tax money in to offer all these. So they want it. In fact, Sweden did try the socialist.
They did.
They started moving more towards socialism, and it started bankrupting their country. So they turned around and added they got capitalism going again, so that they could feed the dollars to pay for some of these programs.
Right.
Right.
And there's so many things about, I don't know when we want to address the issue that scares me the most. And for me, it's the loss of freedom. It's
yes,
loss of my freedoms.
And for me, it's watching people start going down emotionally. And, we see so many. We've been busy for years and had trouble getting anyone in, but we have so many severe people now. And as you move more that way, people are going to get sicker and sicker and sicker, emotionally and physically. And we have people in hospitals that people can't visit, and people are dying, and people in our old folks home, and they're alone. I mean, the whole idea of isolating for whatever reason kills people. And so that's my concern. And there are no socialist countries at all in Western Europe.
No, none.
And so they hold that out as like Bernie Sanders on not Jimmy Kimmel. I don't know. I think it may have been Jimmy. Anyway, he was saying Denmark and Sweden, and they went on and on about that, and I was about to scream because those are not socialist countries. And the reason they look so good is they've done a lot of really great things there, but it's not socialism. And there's a little bit of socialism in some of their programs, but they're not a socialist country. And so I think that they mislead our population that way to make everyone believe that all the things that they want, that's not true. That's not what happens with socialism. And the schools are not teaching it anymore so that people don't know. And honestly, if you don't know history, you're bound to repeat it. We can argue about the cost of these benefits, free healthcare, free college, stronger unions, and point at which they reduce individual initiative. But if you look at socialism as a whole, it does more harm than good.
Oh, enormously more harm than does. Very little good does it do.
Yeah, and Scandinavians have been debating those questions for years, but only a free market capitalist economy can produce the wealth necessary to sustain all the free stuff. Okay?
Yeah, in quotation marks, free stuff.
Yeah, that's what Europeans
really
enjoy. I mean, they do like that. And in Canada is not a socialist country.
No.
But they have some free stuff, right? So you have to have tax dollars, and there you have to have businesses and socialism. Capitalism to get that.
Right. And in contrast to that, whenever we have, like in the last 4 or 5 years, we have reduced taxes, lowered taxes, and our economy is booming now like it hasn't in decades. And people who have been out of work for a long, long time now have jobs that pay them enough to have a really good life. So we have, everything is coming up because of that particular ideology. This is capitalism at its best. And socialism has been a disaster everywhere, every time.
Well, and you have to generate wealth. And what some of the countries like Venezuela and Cuba and places like that, when they were fully socialist, they couldn't produce enough money to pay for everyone.
No.
They couldn't pay salaries, they couldn't eat goods, and that's how they ran out of stuff. Right? And so understand that you have to create enough wealth to generate enough tax revenue to pay for everything the government gives away. So without capitalism, we're Venezuela, basically. In a 2015 speech at Harvard, Denmark's prime minister took great pains to make this point. I know that some people in the U.S. associate the Nordic model with socialism. Therefore, I would like to make one thing clear. Denmark is far from a socialist planned economy. Denmark is a market economy. So when you point to Denmark as a paragon of socialism, you're singing the praises of capitalism, because that's what they are. The more capitalism, the less socialism you need. A policy of lower taxes, less government regulation has led to a robust economic expansion, something almost impossible just a few years earlier. So economic expansion gets people off welfare and into work. That is less socialism.
And more people have been put to work in the last 5 years, 4 years than ever, for a long time here. So, that's what we're going to talk more about.
This does not take a degree in economics. Common sense.
Absolutely.
Suffering with arthritis or osteoporosis? Do you have diabetes?
Did you know that these are just 2 of the hundreds of diseases that have seen improvement with Dr. Wallach's incredible longevity products? You can't get them at a health food store. The only way to get them is to call us at 800-214-0065. That's 800-214-0065. Do you have heart disease, fibromyalgia, or high blood pressure? Do you have a terrible time losing weight? Dr. Wallach can help. He was a veterinarian and cured diseases in animals. He felt that he could do the same for humans, so he became a physician. Over 50 years of research and helping people like you goes into every bottle of Dr. Wallach's amazing discoveries. Do you want to feel better? Learn how to treat the cause of your problem rather than covering up the symptoms with drugs. Call 800-214-0065. That's 800-214-0065. They say we're not getting any younger, but many thousands have felt younger after a few short months using Dr. Wallach's all-natural longevity nutritional supplements. How many times have you said one of these days, I need to call Dr. Wallach and find out what I need? Well, make that day today. Here's how to get that information. Call 800-214-0065. That's 800-214-0065. Write that number down and make the call. The information is free, and there is no pressure. So do it now. That's 800-214-0065. If you face health challenges such as heart disease, arthritis, diabetes, fibromyalgia, depression, infertility, ADD or ADHD, high blood pressure, or one of hundreds of other diseases, help is available. All you have to do is make the call. You have nothing to lose but the pain and suffering. Call 800-214-0065. That's 800-214-0065. You've been listening to Dr. Wallach, and I bet you have some questions. We want to help. And here's how you can get the answers. Call 800-214-0065. That's 800-214-0065. Write that number down and make the call right now. Don't wait any longer to find out how Dr. Wallach's own all-natural nutritional supplements by Longevity can help you. Are you concerned with reducing your risk of heart disease, cancer, stroke, or high blood pressure? Help is available. Do you have arthritis, sore joints, lower back pain, or fibromyalgia? Call now. Dr. Wallach creates his own formulation so you can be sure that what is on the label is actually in the bottle. Whatever your health challenge, make this call. Thousands like you have seen results for a happier, healthier life. Call 800-214-0065. That's 800-214-0065. Call today. 800-214-0065.
Dreaming up the ideal retirement is your job. Helping you get there is ours. That's why we encourage you to contribute to an Edward Jones IRA by April 15th. By investing in an Edward Jones IRA, you can take advantage of potential tax benefits for 2019 and give your money more time to potentially grow. To help you make sense of your retirement goals before the April 15th tax deadline, contact Fritz Beckworth, your local Edward Jones financial advisor at 128 South Cockrell Hill Road, DeSoto, Texas. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC, 972-274-0237.
While you have free time and you're sitting at home and you ponder what kind of gifts to buy for someone, PatriotDepot.com has you covered from puzzles, games, novelty items. If you're looking for some unique style items when it comes to the president, for more you can check out PatriotDepot.com. Call 844-377-8052. That's 844-377-8052 or PatriotDepot.com. Use promo code USA.
Ron, I don't know if you, there are other people. Oh, here we go.
It's getting better, a little better, all the time.
And now here's more Getting Better with Ann Beal on 1160 AM KBDT.
Welcome back. I stepped out for just a second. I thought Mr. Slaughter would cover me there.
No, it wasn't time. I was getting ready to, and then you jumped into your chair.
I did. I jumped into my chair. I am just getting worried about the young people praising socialism and criticizing capitalism because I worry about it working against their own interest. I mean, they need jobs. They would need to be able to, especially these days, because these kids want to follow their passions.
Well, there's this thing about how attractive getting free stuff sounds.
I know, it sounds really
but
great.
The truth is, it always turns back as a monster on you to devour you.
Now, you were the president of your high school class. Did you promise like free lunches, or did you because to me it sounds like when I hear some of these politicians, it does remind me.
No, I did, but it didn't work.
I was on the middle school. I was like the historian, and so when we were running, and in high school, you're running for office with the kids. I mean, you would promise such crazy things, right? And people, they'd be like, yeah, free, the hour-long reset, whatever it was, like not having to go to class until 12. They'd go, yeah. It's
right.
kind of like that. And so, but I really do know that young people today are so passionate, and they want to be able to follow their dreams. And
Sure.
They want to be able to do what they want. They don't want it chosen for them. And they want to be able to excel. And they definitely have lived in a society that has a lot. And so they long for things long before they make all the money. They know what they want a lot better financially.
Yeah, and that kind of passion and that kind of conviction is great. We love that. And we want that kind of thing to drive innovation, and all kinds of creativity that will not happen in the other system. But the thing is, it can be so insidious. That is, it sneaks up on you. And before long, you're realizing, okay, that's not what I meant by this. That's not really what I wanted, but that's what I got.
Yes, and that's what they say about socialism. Eventually, the population starts saying, wait, I didn't mean this.
Right.
This is not what I meant.
I didn't mean that.
Because the model, this is not what it looks like, but this is what it ends up like.
Right.
And it actually goes against the interests of the less fortunate. It helps more of the elite than it helps the poor.
And that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
But some people have not discovered that yet.
Well, and you can just look at that. It always ends up being more of a totalitarian government.
Always.
And that's because, force. If you look at the places, not to get in the whole mask, not mask debate, but you look at the states, where we are, they mandate mask to go into a store or a restaurant or whatever. And so we wear our mask. But if, if I have to breathe, I take it off for a second. I don't have anyone forcing me to the ground. I don't have anyone, physically forcing me to wear the mask. It's just in a free society, they want us to, they mandate it, we put it on. If we want to buy what that store has, then we have to put that mask on to go inside.
And that's where the free decision making comes
Free will,
in. And,
yes.
and that's where I have my part and I have my freedom to decide whether or not I want to enter that store and buy their goods or do whatever. And I don't have to do that. Nobody's holding a gun to my head that I have to do that. Okay.
So Starbucks, I can either wear my mask and go in, or I can drive through. Right? And so if you don't want to wear the mask, you can do a drive-through. So there's like options and everything.
Right. With a socialist society, you will not have options. You will be told what to do and when to do it and how much you can do it.
Physical force.
In fact,
Right.
it always leads to violence.
It does, because physical force. So the difference is, capitalism is they want people to do things based on goodwill. They want them to do it freely. In socialist societies, they want to force them. The few people decide, and they want to force the people to do what they want them to do.
Right.
And instead of millions of people deciding millions of decisions for themselves and others, right? Like everybody is, it's not suggested, it's made. So in the few states where we have more of this socialist governor or socialist mayor, they're forcing people to wear a mask. If they're caught without a mask, they tackle them to the ground. Okay, it's crazy because they're letting criminals go out of prison because they're worried they might get corona, right? So they're letting criminals go, or they're not even enforcing it. Like here in Fort Worth, criminals are getting off. They're not even going to jail, and they're just letting them go now.
Yep.
It's crazy. But in some of these states, if you don't wear a mask, they are physically pulling a gun on you, forcing you to the ground. That's socialism versus capitalism.
Yeah, that's socialism at its best.
And in our clinic, we want people to come in, and so we put the mask on there, but once they get into our office and we start talking, they can take it off if they want. But in a socialist society, we wouldn't be allowed to do that. And I think like hairstylists, if they get hair on it, they can take it off for a minute, and so just having the freedom to do what's best and still protect people, right, without the force behind it.
Right.
And I think capitalism leads to to economic democracy. Socialism leads to economic dictatorship of the elite. And always it has. Always, everywhere. There's not a single instance of us not doing that. So beware what you ask for. You just might get it. Stay right here. We're going to talk more about the health and wellness of it.
Hi, this is Pastor Greg.
For an invention or new product, do you think companies would be interested in your idea? Do you want to try to get a patent? Then call InventHelp now. InventHelp keeps your idea confidential and explains every step of the invention process. We create professional materials representing your idea and submit it to companies who are looking for new ideas. We have more than 9,000 companies who have agreed to review ideas in confidence. If a company shows interest in manufacturing your invention, we can negotiate on your behalf. We have helped over 10,000 clients receive patents. We also offer services including 3D modeling and animation demonstrating your idea, prototyping services, and we use state-of-the-art technology to show InventHelp client ideas to additional companies. Join the thousands of people just like you who chose InventHelp to pursue their idea. We are experienced. We are working for you. We are InventHelp.
Call us for free information at 1-800-460-1663. That's 1-800-460-1663. Again, 1-800-460-1663.
Are you looking for senior care for your mom or dad but don't know where to start? Hi, I'm Jen London with The Place for Mom. Nobody knows your parent or loved one better than you, and nobody knows senior living better than the experts at A Place for Mom. They've helped thousands of families find the right place for their mom or dad.
I was so glad that I called A Place for Mom. My advisor really listened and was truly my partner in finding senior care for my dad. She went out of her way to get to know him as a person and was always there whenever I had a question.
The senior living advisors at A Place for Mom partner with thousands of families every month, listening and offering local knowledge and advice to help find the best senior living communities across the country. And it's a free service. Here's the number.
Call A Place for Mom at 1-800-370-2715.
There's a place for answers, A Place for Mom. Call today.
Call A Place for Mom at 1-800-370-2715. That's 1-800-370-2715.
How's your golf game? Meet Pat Wheeler, host of Texas Links on the Air.
The thing I love about golf, it's the discussions are never ending. You can talk about anything and it's interesting. The clothes, the courses, the instruction, the equipment, and the people who play, of course. The quote of the year so far, Dr. Lee Mack said, I'll be 110 days. I think I'll get a Hershey bar and go hit some balls. That's what we talk about on Texas Links on the Air. Don't miss it.
Texas Links on the Air, Saturday mornings at 8 on 1160 a.m. KBDT.
It's getting better, a little better, all the time.
If you'd like to get better, call Ann right now. 214-810-8255. 214-810-TALK. Now more with Ann Beal on 1160 a.m. KBDT.
Welcome back. I just want to encourage you to call in. We also have another call-in number if you'd like, 469-243-5906. And then you can call and talk with Dr. Slaughter or with me, Ann Beal. We just want to encourage you to listen to news, analyst commentary, and debate here on the John Wells Report. John David Wells, he is on every afternoon from 2 to 5 p.m., only on 1160 a.m.
Only here.
Yes. And so I just want to tell you about that. On the break, we were talking, and Dr. Slaughter was just so adamant. One of the things that I wanted to point out real quick, though, was that, you know, the cool thing about Sweden is that they actually have school vouchers. They enacted school vouchers so that kids can go to private schools. In fact, where the private schools are, the public schools got better because they invested so much. So many people started using their vouchers, and every area that was around a private school, all the public schools got better because they're trying to compete with them.
Right, because, you know, that approach encourages incentive.
Yes.
It speeds up motivation. It does all kinds. It gives you energy, and all kinds of creative thinking comes out. And so there's competition there, and competition breeds more excellence. So anyway, that's one of the strengths that Sweden has brought out.
Well, and Sweden's talked about that a lot. They've come out on YouTube, many top people in Sweden to say we're not socialists, and they talk about what they are.
Right.
But they talked about the reason it's so important for capitalism and is genius comes through capitalism.
Yes.
People come up with ways to overcome things that we can't think of, like hydroponics for growing plants, you know, in very small places, or greenhouses, or things like that. So they always find ways to overcome what we might call, climate change even. They always come up with ways to figure it out. They figure it out. The way to make incredible green buildings. I mean, William McDonough has figured out how to make water from air, and he makes buildings where the air is made inside the building, and he has plants and everything that feed themselves and everything. So people are fully self-sustained there.
Yeah, it sounds impossible, but he's done it.
He does it all over the world.
You've heard lectures from him
I love this
in person, and he's one of your favorites, I know.
Yeah, he was teaming up with SpaceX and Bree, who designed the 3D printer.
3D printer, yeah.
Yeah, and so all of them together, I'm like, oh no, what's going to happen? Who knows? So these great minds at the SAID Summit, right, were just incredible to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
But Sweden talks about that they want ingenuity, they want competition, because greater things come out of that, whereas socialism takes away all competition.
Athletes know the secret of that, because they push each other, right? And you know that's a very strong concept in the world of sports. We push each other to better heights, higher heights, better competitive
Yes,
skills.
if you're running against if you're running on your own for a time, you don't do anywhere near as well as if you have somebody running beside you and they push you. Especially if they're closer to beating you, then you push harder, right? Or if they're ahead of you, you even push even harder. And so they've talked about that's why they don't do the time trials with people by themselves, anymore. They used to.
And I was going to say, from a political perspective, the opposite is true as well. And when you run by yourself, you practice by yourself, your times aren't as good. And people in a socialist country, there's no incentive. There is no chance to get better, to improve yourself. There's no chance of making any more money than the government says you can have. There's no chance of getting any more property or goods or anything than the government, the elite say you can have.
Well, and there's also just this negative mentality, if you think of mental health, that there's nothing better, so therefore we're going to make you do things to live in this world instead of hoping for a better world, right? Like, so in order for that not to happen, it's almost like legalism in Christianity. Extreme legalism says don't drink, so you'll never end up getting drunk. So therefore, alcohol's bad.
Right.
Which it's kind of crazy because Jesus drank wine. So it doesn't really make any sense, and it does harm, and it makes people believe the wrong standard that doesn't work. And so I think that what I wanted to talk about a little bit was lifespans. And capitalist countries versus socialist countries. I mean, true socialism that ends up like Venezuela. There's low poverty, and so low income, destitute, suicide is high, incredibly high. So lifespans are shorter. Whereas in capitalist societies, you have low poverty, not high poverty. Venezuela has high poverty, right? Sorry, low poverty. Well, high poverty in socialist societies, which cause depression, severe anxiety, suicide, hopelessness, all the things we don't want. In capitalist societies, you have low poverty, long lifespans, and narrow income distributions. Everything we would like America to have. And the left makes it sound like, and I say the left, I mean these socialists make it sound like you get all that through socialism, and you don't.
No,
you
you
get
don't.
the opposite of that. But I do think that people do look at Denmark and Sweden and go, oh, what beautiful places, and look how they get all this free stuff, but yet look at all the cool stuff. Well, they do that, a lot of that through higher taxes. It's not socialism, but a lot of capitalism, a lot of money coming in from businesses. But they do have high taxes.
See, and that's the other side of it. Okay, there are high taxes to help pay for things that they would like to have, and they don't charge the people for certain things. But also at the same time, you're generating revenue through these business enterprises. And socialism just stomps that flat.
Yes, but when you look at it, what's wild about it, which I think is wild, okay, the head of Sweden, they were talking about this, and they were saying that the way they're different from America is that, in many ways, but this one way is that lower income people pay higher taxes. So low income, they pay 60% in taxes.
I remember hearing that,
Yeah, and so it's to motivate them to make more money. It's to motivate them, okay? But yeah, it's really wild. It's like the opposite of what we do.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, right? We talk about taxing the rich, not taxing anyone else or taxing the poor, and that's all in what you call poor and what you call rich.
And you would think that that Nordic model would not work, but it does. It works for them.
And it works better than ours because what they say is there's more low income. So that by taxing them 60%, they actually make more money that way than taxing the rich because there's very few rich.
Yeah.
And so you could tax the rich completely and you wouldn't have enough to support the country.
Right.
So they tax everyone, okay? And there's not that much difference in the percentage except that it's higher if you're low income. It's not that much different, but it is higher.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they tax everyone. And they don't, so I found that fascinating. That's not something that you would think would work. And so that's not socialism, but it is a fascinating model because I had no idea about that.
Yeah, I'd never seen that model either, and we became aware of that over the last few days as we were doing some work and reading and research. But if that is that's just another example of things that are going on in Europe or in the Nordic countries in Europe over there that. We would value, but we don't really see always the truth about it.
No.
It's not socialism. It really is free market capitalism.
And it's how they've found, based on free market, to make the most money to run their country.
Right.
Which is why their trade deals are so good. I mean, that's what our president's been working on, is to get better trade deals. And they have really good trade deals so that they're not losing out on their exports and imports, which is very important.
Right.
They also stand out. They also have, what do? They do incentives for businesses, because we saw that. A lot of incentives for businesses so that they produce more guiding what they want to produce, what the country wants them to produce, but they don't force them to do that. They provide incentives for them to do that. Right. Whereas a socialist society makes them do that. Right. So, anyway. That's
I was thinking that too. And this may just seem like we're jumping around a little bit, but there are some books that I have read recently that describe this phenomenon of what happens with socialism and taken to the extreme. And I remember on 1984, the book by George Orwell decades ago, the kind of the brainwashing technique, one that came out, was to convince people that slavery is freedom and freedom is slavery.
Yeah, they flip it.
And they just flip the whole thing around. Whereas we would say, freedom is the opposite of slavery. It is not slavery. And that anytime we're enslaved, we can't be free. So what the society that Orwell described in that book says is nonsense. And yet, my point is that moving toward socialism, that's what we see happening. People believing and coming to just to live that way, just because that's the way it is, that freedom is slavery and slavery is freedom.
Well, and if you think about it, it's being forced to do things that only a certain amount of people want. So usually a few, right, minority people demand it of others. So what they want is important, what you want is not important.
Yeah.
Certain people get to choose what even if you think of gender pronouns, I mean, who decided that? Few people, and then we have to do it. And then if we don't do it, we're cancel cultured, right?
We're haters of the public.
Whatever. Yeah, they spin it to make it all bad, but it's whatever they choose is bad, right?
And that's a good example of socialism working, I think.
Yeah, and I think that when you look at Nordic countries, right, they already have this wonderful weather, and there's lots of things about their climate that provide such good health and wellness that I think that when they use that climate and let people get out in it and they farm and they hike and they can freely have access to nature and all the things that come along with that climate, their health and wellness is better.
And we've said that all along. Being outside is healthy, being inside is unhealthy, and so we advocate enjoying the outdoors.
Yes, and they own their own farms, and they get to farm their own land and be free, right? And so when they start taking that away, which socialism takes property.
With no compensation.
Right. And so you saw that here in Vermont or Wisconsin when they started making farmers They made them pour out all their milk and break all their eggs and get
kill
rid of
all their cows.
Kill all their cows. Get rid of all their product so they couldn't compete.
Right.
And it was organic farms. They were doing that too. So you saw these farmers sitting there crying, having to pour out all their milk and break all their eggs.
Yeah.
And they threatened them and said, if you don't do it, we're going to put you in jail, or we're going to take everything or put your family in jail. That's what happens in socialist countries.
Socialism at its best.
It takes, and it decides which businesses are open and which businesses are closed.
And which hand sanitizers can be on the market and which ones can't,
Right
which is
now
a huge
they
issue
just,
right now.
Right, because all these companies started with new hand sanitizers to compete, and they shut them all down.
Yep.
The FDA just shut them all down. And so part of it is when you look at just bars not being open, okay, Flips can be open and they have bars. Chili's can be open and they have a bar, and people can sit around, drink, and socialize. But just bars can't be open. Why? It's not a virus thing. I mean, and you can go in Walmart and stand in line and check out, but you can't vote and stand in line and check out. I mean, so part of it is this is not a virus thing. This is a control thing. And I'm not saying that there's not a virus. I mean, but I'm just saying they're turning it into
the way
a
it's
power
being
grab.
handled often becomes out that way, that it's a power deal.
Yeah, so your freedoms are being taken away. Using the coronavirus as a reason to take your freedoms away. Not every state is doing that. Not every city is doing that. Not every county is doing that. But you can see it with these socialist mayors and socialist governors that are using it as a power grab. But the one place everywhere it's being hurt are bars. Bars are not open. Movie theaters are not open. So you can sit with people in restaurants and you can go in stores and you can be around people and all that, but you can't sit in a movie theater. You could social distance in a movie theater.
You could, yeah. And I don't know if this is the place to say this or not, but I want to give kudos to John MacArthur, the pastor who stood up and said, I'm having church. I'm having my people come to church.
Yes.
And if you want to take me to jail, take me to jail. But that's what I'm going to do. And
that is a constitutional right, whereas a movie theater is not. And,
right.
You know what I mean? And so, yes, in California, they closed the churches and they even told them they could not sing. Which is so crazy. Okay, you can, some of the places they could have church, but they couldn't sing. I mean, that has nothing to do with, that's socialism right at work.
Right.
And those are just small glimpses, and that's why we have glimpses now to look at. And of course, I don't want people getting sicker and sicker and sicker. You know, we've had people come from Venezuela. We had clients from Venezuela. We've had clients from Cuba. We've had clients from these countries that they've escaped from.
Yeah.
We've had clients who escaped from communist China. And so they're here and they've been here and they started having businesses in Hong Kong and all that's happened in Hong Kong and they are terrified what's going on here. And they're like, Americans are blind. What is wrong with you guys? You need to see it. It's out there. It's not only just history. You can see it today happening. And just because these socialists in our country are saying those aren't examples of socialism. No, they're perfect examples. I mean, Russia never said they were communists. They said they were socialist republic.
Right.
USSR, United Socialist Republic.
United Soviet Socialist
Republic, right?
And now there are people who are wanting to make the United States a union of socialist American states.
And China is not communist. I mean, we call them communists, but communism, that whole ideal is everyone works together and everyone benefits and everyone grows equally and all that. That is not what China is. China is a socialist society.
Socialist dictatorship, yeah.
Yes, and they all end up being dictatorships.
Yes, they do.
And so we want you to understand we don't want you to get sick. We want to have you understand what's going on now in our country and just tell you the truth so you can work on getting better and getting everything else better.
Are you suffering with arthritis or osteoporosis? Do you have diabetes? Did you know that these are just two of the hundreds of diseases that have seen improvement with Dr. Wallach's incredible longevity products? You can't get them at a health food store. The only way to get them is to call us at 800-214-0065. That's 800-214-0065. Do you have heart disease, fibromyalgia, or high blood pressure? Do you have a terrible time losing weight? Dr. Wallach can help. He was a veterinarian and cured diseases in animals. He felt that he could do the same for humans, so he became a physician. Over 50 years of research and helping people like you goes into every bottle of Dr. Wallach's amazing discoveries. Do you want to feel better? Learn how to treat the cause of your problem rather than covering up the symptoms with drugs. Call 800-214-0065. That's 800-214-0065. They say we're not getting any younger, but many thousands have felt younger after a few short months using Dr. Wallach's all-natural longevity nutritional supplements. How many times have you said one of these days I need to call Dr. Wallach and find out what I need? Well, make that day today. Here's how to get that information. Call 800-214-0065. That's 800-214-0065. Write that number down and make the call. The information is free, and there is no pressure. So do it now. That's 800-214-0065. If you face health challenges such as heart disease, arthritis, diabetes, fibromyalgia, depression, infertility, ADD or ADHD, high blood pressure, or one of hundreds of other diseases, help is available. All you have to do is make the call. You have nothing to lose but the pain and suffering. Call 800-214-0065. That's 800-214-0065. You've been listening to Dr. Wallach, and I bet you have some questions. We want to help. And here's how you can get the answers. Call 800-214-0065. That's 800-214-0065. Write that number down and make the call right now. Don't wait any longer to find out how Dr. Wallach's own all-natural nutritional supplements by Youngevity can help you. Are you concerned with reducing your risk of heart disease, cancer, stroke, or high blood pressure? Help is available. Do you have arthritis, sore joints, lower back pain, or fibromyalgia? Call now. Dr. Wallach creates his own formulation so you can be sure that what is on the label is actually in the bottle. Whatever your health challenge, make this call. Thousands like you have seen results for a happier, healthier life. Call 800-214-0065. That's 800-214-0065. Call today. 800-214-0065.
Do you have an idea for an invention or new product? Do you think companies would be interested in your idea? Do you want to try to get a patent? Then call InventHelp now. InventHelp keeps your idea confidential and explains every step of the invention process. We create professional materials representing your idea and submit it to companies who are looking for new ideas. We have more than 9,000 companies who have agreed to review ideas in confidence. If a company shows interest in manufacturing your invention, we can negotiate on your behalf. We have helped over 10,000 clients receive patents. We also offer services including 3D modeling and animation demonstrating your idea, prototyping services, and we use state-of-the-art technology to show InventHelp client ideas to additional companies. Join the thousands of people just like you who chose InventHelp to pursue their idea. We are experienced. We are working for you. We are InventHelp.
Call us for free information at 1-800-460-1663. That's 1-800-460-1663. Again, 1-800-460-1663.
Okay.
Privilege.
To admit it's getting better, a little better all the time.
You're getting better all the time. Now back to Ann Beal on 1160 AM KBDT.
We were talking about in these socialist societies about greed, and it is about greed. The reason that the normal people, the regular people can't get things and don't have money and all that is because the top people take it all. Mm-hmm. And if you look at Maduro, he's taken all the income. He takes all the resources, him and his people. Same thing that happened with Hitler and all his people. Everyone else is left on bread lines and they can't get food. And like we were all searching for toilet paper, right? That's what it would be like all the time.
All the time, I know.
You know, we know people that have been missionaries everywhere, and they're in Russia. When you went to Moscow, there weren't food lines anymore, but it wasn't communist anymore, socialist anymore. It was free. Were there food lines?
Right, there were no food lines, but I got the impression I didn't see the real Russia.
Yeah.
I didn't see the real Russia when I was in Moscow, and probably nobody does. What I did see was decadence there, though.
Because it had been destroyed for so long.
Everything, I mean, you could still see old buildings that used to be grand.
Yeah, and they were just...
Okay,
yeah.
and I talked to my daughter who was a missionary there, and she said, well, what happened? You know, Stalin took all the people's money and built these wonderful, huge political government buildings and let everybody else's stuff just totally deteriorate.
Yes.
And so...
what happened, if you think of Stalin, right? Like he killed millions and millions. They all end up murdering millions of people.
Murdered hundreds
Same
of
thing.
millions of people.
Cuba has killed millions. Venezuela, millions. I mean, you look at it, people die. But when we just look at the greed, because I don't want to get dark and all that, if you just look at the greed, the few people that get, the elite that get to do, so it's kind of like what happened with Harvard, and we were talking about that on break, that Harvard and Stanford and the, rich actors or all the congressmen that have like all 4 of their children that are apparently just all 4 incredible geniuses. All 4 of them have got in Harvard.
Imagine that.
And they all are so smart. And that's what happens with congressmen's children all the time. They all go to these top schools. And then the actors that, oh, he went to Harvard and he went to Harvard and he went to Harvard. And it's like, yeah, okay. So when we have these genius kids that are in high school that have gotten state scores, national top scores, and they can't get in a school like Harvard, I always tell them, they're like, I got rejected. And I'm always like, don't feel bad about it. Those places are bought out.
Yeah, all the spaces
those aren't
are given
real,
away already before you even...
Yeah, those aren't the real
matter.
smart places. Those are for the privileged people to go. It isn't about how smart you are. Because I can tell you this, I've been doing acting for a long time, and all my friends, and I have some friends that were great actors, they weren't that smart. I mean, it's not like they all make A's and B's. That's not. They're in theater, man. And but yet they can just, wow, they're so gifted. Yeah, you pay the right amount of money, you can get in.
Yep.
And so that's what socialism is about, and that's what happens in these countries. And so everyone else loses out, and then you have the lines and the food lines and all that kind of stuff. And so that is what we don't want to have happen here.
And that's ultimately why the whole system goes downhill, because of greed and the elitist mentality, where you have just a few people at the top directing traffic, and everybody else is on the bottom. And they're getting the fallout from all of that, and eventually it absolutely falls apart. And like we keep saying, Venezuela is the most recent example of that, but they're all like that.
Well, and we do have these socialist programs, okay? If you look at the welfare system that we have, if you look at Social Security, you look at the government-run programs and how badly they're run. Just look at the post office. Are you getting your mail on time? I mean, I just the other day, one of my clients, he just got a Christmas card returned. He just got it.
Right.
I had people that sent their tax return by signature, tracking, and they said it's still not there, and they sent it before the tax deadline of August 15th. And so what's wrong? Well, it's a government-run entity. And when government runs it, it's not very good. There's no competition. And so people just don't have to do very good. And so it's not run very well. And you tell me one government organization that's run well. Actually. And so if we put all our money and send all our money and everything goes to a main place in the government, and then they're supposed to disperse it, well, it sounds good. It really sounds good. But unfortunately, billions just disappear.
Don't they ever?
They just have been like 11 billion disappeared. We don't know where it went. That was
like on a
4 years
pallet
ago.
of gold to Iran.
Oh yeah, but I mean, at least they know where that went. But lots of time, money just disappears, and the corrupt take it, right? Like they give it to their relatives or their friends or whoever. And so we don't want that here. I mean, we have some socialist programs, and so does Sweden, and so does Denmark, and a lot of great places in the world. But we don't want to become a socialist society. And our voting rights are very important. So voting right now is the most important thing to fight for. Because if we don't have the right to vote and we don't get to pick our representatives and they're chosen for us, well, you know how that's going to go.
Yeah, it's not going to.
And the thing about mail-in voting is they mail out all these ballots to people's houses, and you don't know who fills them out and sends them in, and they can disappear, just like mail.
Mail-in voting is perfect for corruption, and it will happen if that takes place.
Okay, so we're done. You guys have a great week, and next week, just be right here so you can keep getting better. Join us.
See ya.